From WGCU News, I'm Amy Tardif. Punta Gorda City Manager Howard Koenig is waiting for the results of an internal affairs report before he decides whether suspended Police Chief Tom Lewis keeps or loses his job. Lewis was acquitted of culpable negligence the last week of June in the death of 73-year-old Mary Knowlton during a shoot-don't-shoot demonstration at police headquarters last August. The city fired Officer Lee Cole after he was charged with felony manslaughter with a firearm for shooting Mary Knowlton with a revolver he mistakenly loaded with real so-called wad-cutter bullets rather than blanks. His trial has not been set. For the first time since the shooting, Mary Knowlton's widower Gary and their son Steve speaks with WGCU's Michael Hirsch.
Gary and Mary Knowlton were high school sweethearts. They'd been married for 55 years and moved to Punta Gorda Isles full-time in 2014. Mary became very active in the community, focusing much of her volunteer work on the building of a new library. She'd become active in the Chamber of Commerce and was part of the group of approximately 40 members who went to the city's police headquarters last August 9th to participate in a so-called Citizens Academy familiarization tour. Gary accompanied her. The next morning, they were to leave on a trip to Lake Tahoe, where they were going to spend time with family. The trip never happened. Mary was randomly selected to participate in the shoot-don't-shoot demonstration that went horribly wrong. When she was shot, Gary was standing with the chamber members roughly 20 or 30 feet away. One of two bullets that hit her pierced a major artery. She died in the ambulance en route to Lee Memorial's trauma center. The weather was too stormy for her to be evacuated by helicopter. Within a few months, Gary, his 51-year-old son Steve, and 54-year-old son Bill were approached by the city of Punta Gorda and offered a $2 million settlement, which they accepted. Gary Knowlton sat through much of Chief Lewis's trial, Steve through all of it. A few days after it ended with an acquittal, I spoke with both of them.
It's devastating. My dad looked at least 5, if not 10 years younger a year ago. I mean, this has just sucked the joy out of our lives. I mean, you come in this house and it's not the same. It's quiet. My mom was larger. She was a larger-than-life character.
That's Steve. Gary says as time goes on, things have gotten harder for him.
I find that it doesn't seem like people really understand, because things have gotten very hard for us to accept. For instance, we had this settlement with the city. People were kind of cruel enough to say, well, you sure that's enough money? And things like that, you know.
They weren't saying it in a helpful way. They were saying it in a sarcastic way.
Sarcastic way, yeah. So basically, I kind of thought that, you know, we're the victims, mainly Mary, but the rest of us were under pain and stress the whole time. And there are an awful lot of good people that have been nice to us. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you asked me about how we're taking some of the bad part of it. I can't get used to living alone. It's very hard for me, because I'm always waking up in the morning and I'm expecting Mary to be there, and she's not. The boys are having a hard time too. So the long and short of it is that I find that as these trials go on, it gets worse too. I still am hurting bad, and I don't know when it'll go away.
Both Gary and Steve acknowledged they were not prepared to see a small group of Punta Gorda residents demonstrating in front of City Hall last February, urging City Manager Howard Koenig to save our chief when Chief Tom Lewis was charged with misdemeanor culpable negligence. Gary says it really hurt for them to hear Koenig tell the media Lewis was a wonderful person. At the same time, he suspended him with pay, a suspension that continues. And they say they were not able to understand how Koenig could say it's okay for Lewis to take money from citizens and from members of the police department for his defense fund.
I felt, especially with this trial, I expected that Mary's death would mean something, and yet it seemed like everybody was more concerned about saving Tom Lewis than they were what happened to Mary. And it took that the hard way. They trivialized Mary, just like those people that were protesting the day Koenig was saying how wonderful Lewis was.
What difference would a guilty verdict have made in your life?
Well, it would have said that there was some vindication that I know there's a silent majority here in the town, but the silent majority hasn't said anything. They're just kind of laying in the weeds. I don't get it. Maybe they're waiting to see if Lewis has given him his job back. I don't know.
The nature of the charge against Lewis was also problematic for the Knowltons. The charge was misdemeanor culpable negligence, which both prosecutors and defense attorneys acknowledge is especially difficult to prove. Before the trial, the defense asked the judge to modify the standard jury instructions to explicitly follow a precedent-setting 1985 case known as Azima v. State. It grew out of a doctor implanting an IUD in a woman who was already pregnant. In an appellate decision, the court ruled that, quote, there was no evidence that Azima's negligent insertion of the IUD would likely cause death or great bodily harm. In the absence of such evidence, the jury could not convict Azima of culpable criminal negligence, end quote. In the Lewis trial, once the defense rested, Judge Devin George ruled the Azima decision would be the law that was given to the jury as part of its instructions. Criminal defense attorneys tell WGCU she had no choice. Azima was a 2nd District Circuit Court of Appeal ruling, and she's bound by it. Could she have issued the ruling before the trial began, as the defense requested? Yes, but she chose not to. Consequently, unless the jury could find Chief Lewis knew his actions would likely cause death or great bodily harm to Mary Knowlton, they would have to find him not guilty. And although Gary Knowlton disagrees with the ruling, he says it's crazy talk to believe the chief intended to harm his wife. Still, he says, the trial made no sense to him.
To me, it was just kind of a joke, especially when the judge waits until the last day to make this change in the ruling so that the poor prosecutor, he doesn't have a prayer of winning.
Well, that should have been decided beforehand, and also definitely Lewis did something wrong. The first mistake he made was keeping Cole on after the dog mauling. He was told by several lawyers that someday Lee Cole is going to kill somebody. He was warned several times. Lee Cole has cost his community over $2 million. He's an expensive cop to have on the force.
9 months before Officer Lee Cole shot Mary Knowlton, he allowed his police dog to severely injure a man who was riding his bike at night without a proper taillight. The video of that attack made news nationwide. The city settled with the man for $77,000. Officer Cole was given a few days of retraining. Steve Knowlton says he believes Chief Lewis deliberately chose Cole to participate in the Chamber of Commerce demonstration to help rehabilitate his image.
In the back of my mind, I think he was doing PR work for Lee Cole to get his status back in the community to rise. That's why he put it, well, it backfired on him, and it ruined our lives. I mean, I think, like my dad said, people have trivialized my mom's life, and there's a lot of collateral damage.
Before the trial, the defense moved to prevent the jury from seeing photos or video showing what happened in the moments after Mary Knowlton was shot. The jury did see silent surveillance video leading up to the moment the shots were fired. The jury was also not allowed to hear anything about Officer Lee Cole's past, not his quitting a job on the Miramar police force while under investigation for use of excessive force, not his incident with a canine. Steve Knowlton says that belittled what happened to his mother.
They were using terms like injury in the trial just to minimize. It was a Disney version of what happened in that trial. The video didn't have any volume. It didn't show the horror that the citizens went through watching my mom shot, turn around, fall down, and then find out she's really, hurt severely. Use the word injured. That's a pretty lame word to use in a scenario like that.
The Knowltons say even though they received a $2 million settlement from the city, it distresses them that no Punta Gorda government official ever reached out and apologized.
A friend of mine worked through the representative of the consul. Never did meet with them, but I never did ask for that, but they offered the $2 million. And I said, well, from what I understand, to go forward and try to gain any more would be frivolous, because it might take 5 or 10 years, and then even if you win 5 or 10 million, whatever it is, they might not even have it to give you. To make a long story short, the fact that this was done through a friend, I don't remember getting I'm sorry.
The settlement agreement Gary Knowlton and the city signed says the city does not admit any wrongdoing or accept any responsibility. Steve Knowlton says he believes it is responsible. As for the supporters of Tom Lewis,
I'd just like to say to the people in the Tom Lewis fan club, I understand you're going to be friends with Tom Lewis. He probably is a great guy, but a horrible atrocity happened here, and maybe you should research all the facts of what happened and what he allowed to happen and what would have happened to somebody else.
Testimony at Chief Lewis's trial elicited the fact that there were 25 bullets missing from the box of .38 caliber wad cutters Lee Cole thought were blanks. 4 of them were fired the night Mary Knowlton was killed. Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigation transcripts reveal that immediately after the shooting, Cole blurted out, "This was the ammunition he used all the time." Testimony also raised the notion that Cole had fired that same ammunition during dog training demonstrations for civilians at the Charlotte County Sheriff's gun range. Lee Cole has been fired and will stand trial for felony manslaughter sometime next year, unless there's a plea deal. He's out on bail. Gary Knowlton is torn between remaining in Punta Gorda, where he has friends and support from his church, or moving to the East Coast to be with his 2 sons and try to leave the memories of last August 9th behind. Meanwhile, Punta Gorda residents wait for City Manager Howard Koenig to decide if he'll fire Chief Tom Lewis after an internal affairs investigation or allow him to remain Chief of Police. For WGCU News, I'm Michael Hirsch in Punta Gorda.
Whether they're innocent or guilty in this trial, they still got the blood of my mom on their hands. I pray my mom's life isn't in vain, and I'll make sure it isn't.
Mary Knowlton's son reacting to the breaking news this afternoon. A jury has found Punta Gorda Police Chief Tom Lewis not guilty. He was on trial for the shooting death of Knowlton. One of the chief's former officers shot and killed the retired librarian. His gun should have been loaded with blanks.
Lewis was charged with culpable negligence, accused of not making sure safety measures were in place. NBC2's Jacqueline Beavis just spoke to Knowlton's family.
The jury took just under 3 hours to deliberate in this case. They asked only one question. They wanted to re-review the video of that demonstration at the very center of it all, where Mary Knowlton was shot and killed. But eventually, they determined that Tom Lewis was not to blame for any of the events that August night.
The defendant is not guilty.
Tom Lewis listened to the verdict with his family and supporters behind him, breathing a sigh of relief, but declined to share any thoughts on the announcement.
I think it was the right decision, and just very pleased with the verdict. I think the right thing happened.
Mr. Lewis, any thoughts?
No, ma'am.
But the family of Mary Knowlton felt much differently.
Obviously, my mom was murdered, and it's not considered that. No checks on the gun. That's just makes no sense at all.
Gary Knowlton left the courtroom during the defense's closing argument and looked surprised by the not guilty verdict. His son pushing for more to be done on behalf of his mother.
My dad's just not in shape right now to be able to deal with this, but I think someone's got to speak for my mom. Right now, I just got to take this in, and you know, we'll get over this and we'll move on and keep fighting.
The case against Officer Lee Cole continues. The Knowlton family saying, though, they're committed to finding justice. As for Tom Lewis's role with the Punta Gorda Police Department, the city says he'll undergo an internal affairs investigation before that is determined. Reporting live in Charlotte County, Jacqueline Beavis, NBC2.
Right now on Fox 4 News at 6, in the clear, a jury in Charlotte County finding Punta Gorda Police Chief Tom Lewis not guilty of culpable negligence in a deadly shooting that happened under his watch last August. Mary Knowlton was shot with live rounds instead of blanks were supposed to be in the gun during a Citizens Police Academy. The officer who shot her, Lee Cole, is charged with manslaughter. He's scheduled to stand trial next year. 4 in your corners, Tony Sadiku live outside the Charlotte County Courthouse right now with more on this verdict. Tony?
Patrick, today we heard the closing arguments from both sides before the judge handed the 6-person jury the case this afternoon. The verdict, not guilty for Chief Lewis. It's welcome news for the chief, but another setback for the Knowlton family.
The defendant is not guilty. So say we all.
The jury finding Punta Gorda Police Chief Tom Lewis not guilty of culpable negligence in the death of librarian Mary Knowlton.
Very pleased with the jury's verdict.
Lewis's attorney praised the jury after about 3 hours of deliberations.
The jury did a great job.
The 4-day trial ended today with both sides making their closing arguments.
Tom Lewis doesn't have puppet strings on Lee Cole. Tom Lewis doesn't have some kind of mind power to control Lee Cole.
Tom Lewis is the person that authorized the shoot, don't shoot scenario. He was involved when it first came into the Punta Gorda Police Department. This was his scenario.
Halfway through the deliberations, the jury requested to take another look at the video showing Officer Lee Cole waving his weapon before killing Knowlton.
They dehumanized my mom.
Knowlton's son Steve hoped for a different result.
I wish something could have been said about the actual fact that Lee Cole shouldn't have even had a job there, let alone be the one picked to play the role.
He says there's no excuse for why his mom died the way she did.
No checks on the gun. That's just makes no sense at all. No sense at all.
Mayor Knowlton's son also says he hopes his mother's death was not in vain, and he says he'll continue fighting to get justice for her. Chief Lewis declined to comment after the verdict. It's still unclear how that verdict might affect his job status. Count on 4 in your corner to bring you those details when we get them. Live in Charlotte County tonight, Tony Sadiku, Fox 4 in your corner.
And at 6:02, while you were sleeping, Cape Coral police spent the morning investigating a shooting.
Yeah, it happened right here on Northwest 22nd.
The defendant is not guilty.
Tonight, those words from a Punta Gorda jury are rippling through a divided community. A jury found Police Chief Tom Lewis not guilty of culpable negligence after one of his officers shot and killed retired librarian Mary Knowlton during a Citizens Academy last year. The Night Beat's Kim Powell spoke with an expert about what could have led up to the jury's decision.
We're going to keep going. We're not done.
Mary Knowlton's son says his mother was dehumanized by this trial, but he's not letting this acquittal overshadow his mom's life.
Innocent or guilty in this trial, they still got the blood of my mom on their hands.
After 3 hours of deliberations, the jury found Punta Gorda Police Chief Tom Lewis not guilty of culpable negligence in the accidental shooting of the 73-year-old retired librarian. Lewis did not want to comment.
I think we had a wonderful jury. They did a great job. They were very attentive.
We respect the jury's decision either way, and we asked a lot of this jury.
Pam C., a criminal law professor at FGCU, says based on the definition of culpable negligence, she thinks the jury made the right decision.
Is he responsible for what happened? Of course he is. And that is going to weigh heavily on him for the rest of his life. But is he criminally responsible? No, he's not.
Several officers testified earlier this week. Experts say there were many red flags missed that led to Mary's death. No one was assigned to check Officer Lee Cole's gun that night, and he used a real gun.
That could have happened anywhere. But I think it's never going to happen anywhere again after what happened here.
The Knowltons say they want someone to be held accountable.
I get the feeling that Lee Cole is probably going to get a slap on the wrist. I hope not. I pray not.
Kim Powell, Wink News Now.
Officials say they don't know how much this case costs taxpayers because prosecutors work on multiple cases at a time. The city released a statement saying Chief Lewis's future employment status will be determined by the Internal Affairs investigation. He is on paid administrative leave. As soon as that investigation is complete, count on Wink News to let you know what they decide.
All new on Wink News at 6.
The chief has been doing a PR campaign about, I'm open, I'm honest, anything you want to talk about. Well, he doesn't want to talk about these other incidents. He didn't release these other incidents until you had to go digging through like a madman to find them.
Wink News pushes to get memos from the Punta Gorda Police Department about Lee Cole, the cop who shot 73-year-old Mary Knowlton during a shoot, don't shoot citizens demonstration back in August. These are memos that have never been made public before.
And tonight we'll tell you about the memo from an officer who trains other cops
witnessing Lee Cole making what she basically calls a wrongful arrest. Wink News investigative reporter Dave Colbreth has the exclusive.
This sort of stuff should be unacceptable in any law enforcement agency.
He was a one-man wrecking crew in Punta Gorda, and nobody tried to stop him.
Is he fabricating things? Is he making things up just to make the arrest?
3 longtime Charlotte County attorneys, all who have also been prosecutors in their career, read this memo about an arrest made by Lee Cole, which the Punta Gorda police never released until Wink News spent a great deal of effort and hundreds of dollars.
Just shows that the Punta Gorda Police Department was hiding this stuff. Every news agency in the country was asking for these type of documents.
The memo really hit home for Steve Leskovich because it was about his client, Jacob Hill.
You always hear about corruption, but then to actually read it and know that it happens to someone you know is actually quite disheartening.
On June 23, 2015, Officer Bonnie Buckaloo sent this memo to the Punta Gorda Police administrators.
They knew roughly 8 hours after this arrest.
Buckaloo, along with another officer, came upon Lee Cole, who had pulled Hill over for driving the wrong way on this one-way street. First, Cole had his dog sniff around the vehicle for drugs, but it did not detect any. After that, Cole said that he was changing hats and now going to try for a DUI.
He's fishing for something.
Buckaloo also wrote that Cole did not ask any of the related DUI questions and that she did not observe anything that would indicate an impaired driver.
Falling over, stumbling, no odor of alcohol, no bloodshot, watery eyes. None of that information is written anywhere in any of the reports.
Buckaloo summed it up by writing that Cole performed the requested sobriety exercises without any notable concerns, and that he probably should not have been placed under arrest.
It's shocking to read an officer's report that says another officer was seeking or finding a reason to make an arrest. Why is he even arrested?
Apparently, that's also what people in the state attorney's office wondered, because Wink News obtained these documents from them, where a prosecutor writes, "I do not see how there was enough for a DUI arrest, and if that's out, then there's no probable cause to search."
I would bet $1,000 the state attorney had no idea that there was another officer on scene who believes that this was a false arrest.
So, the state attorney's office started playing Let's Make a Deal and said it would drop 5 of the 7 charges, including 2 felonies and the DUI.
DUI getting dropped? Almost never. I mean, it is a very, very rare circumstance.
I can count on one hand how many times a DUI has been dismissed prior to charges being filed. This is one of them.
When the state attorney's office offered to drop most of the charges, Jacob Hill pled to minor possession of weed and got out of jail immediately.
He pled to those because he was in jail for 35 days and he needed to get out. Who's not going to take that?
Wink News talked to Jacob Hill, who lost his driver's license for a whole year, his apartment, and his job.
And now when he's looking for employment, what shows up on his background? A DUI. Who the heck's going to hire somebody with that kind of record?
So, what did the Punta Gorda police do about this memo? It said it was successfully prosecuted with the means of a plea.
And I have to tell you this. Any department that defines this as a successful prosecution, they should all resign.
Without asking, the Punta Gorda police also gave us emails saying things like, Buckaloo seems to have an obvious dislike for Lee Cole, stating to other officers that she refuses to acknowledge him or back him up on traffic stops.
She's one of their current own. She's part of the blue line. You don't cross it. She crossed it.
Would he have taken that plea had you known about this email, this memo?
Absolutely not.
When I talked with Jacob Hill, he said he came down here because he's a roofer and needed to work year-round. Well, after all this, he said no one would hire him, so he had to go back to northern Minnesota, and he said, try making a living there doing roofing in the winter. When we asked the Punta Gorda police for an interview, we were told the chief will not be providing an interview on the memo you referenced, continuing the public discussion of Officer Cole's work product prior to the conclusion of both FDLE's investigation and our own internal investigation is unfair and possibly improper on our end. That memo, as well as last night's story regarding those other memos, are on our website at winknews.com. Dave Colbreth, Wink News Now.
I think that that was a sign of just arrogance. I mean, you don't need to double and triple check yourself. You don't need to have other people double and triple check you. You don't have to have a procedure in place. You don't have to make sure. Like, all of those things just make me sick to my stomach.
On August 9th, 3 dozen people watched as a Punta Gorda police officer shot and killed a woman during a Citizens Academy demonstration. Officer Lee Cole's still on paid administrative leave after the death of 73-year-old Mary Knowlton. But could it have been prevented?
Tonight, only Wink News has memos that were not in Cole's personnel file. After weeks of requests and hundreds of dollars spent, Punta Gorda police finally gave us those memos with allegations of bad arrests, insubordination, and policy violation. Wink News investigative reporter Dave Colbreth has the details.
Nobody should be running around this town with a gun and a badge with these type of allegations against them.
No self-respecting law enforcement agency that I've ever encountered should be tolerating this kind of behavior.
Those are two longtime Charlotte County attorneys. Both of them were shocked when I showed them these memos obtained by Wink News after the Punta Gorda police fought hard to prevent us from getting them.
Just shows that the Punta Gorda Police Department was hiding this stuff. Every news agency in the country was asking for these type of documents.
These new memos show Lee Cole's problems with the Punta Gorda police. But Cole's problems started in his rookie year with the Miramar police, where he was involved in 2 internal affairs investigations. This one, where he yanked a man out of the back of his cruiser. After just 1 year, Cole was forced to resign. He then applied for jobs at over 2 dozen police agencies near Miami. Wink News obtained Cole's application files from most of them, who turned him down. So he then redirected his efforts to Southwest Florida, where the only agency interested in him was Punta Gorda. It was a year after he left Miramar when Cole was hired by Punta Gorda.
Miramar got it right. The other 25 police departments that refused to hire him got it right. Punta Gorda got it wrong.
Cole's personnel file with the Punta Gorda police shows many positive things he's done. But then there's these newly obtained memos that were not in his personnel file.
When you hire somebody that was asked to resign from a different police force, they should be on thin ice.
The first incident Wink News discovered is depicted in this memo. It was February 4th, 2015, when Cole accidentally discharged his taser at home. He was never disciplined.
To have an officer not check his taser before he does a spark test, that is Barney Fife stuff.
On October 23, 2015, a supervisor, Thomas Keegan, wrote this memo saying Cole was insubordinate to him and questioned his authority.
I think that him being insubordinate to his lieutenant seems to kind of go along with all of the other misconduct that he's alleged to have engaged in, because, you know, each one of those is kind of him being arrogant.
Then exactly 1 week later, Cole saw a man riding his bicycle at night without a light. The man wouldn't stop, so Cole sicked his dog on him. But Wink News has now learned from this email that there was what was called a community initiative in place, where officers were supposed to give warnings and free bicycle lights to people instead of arresting them. The Punta Gorda police ultimately settled with the man for $60,000, and over $120,000 worth of medical bills were written off by a hospital. The Punta Gorda police also hired an expert who determined that Cole did not do anything wrong.
I don't care what they say, you know, him allowing that dog to rip the chest wall out of a man who was driving without lights on a bicycle, that's insanity.
The dog bite issue got attention around the world, and Cole said he was receiving death threats. So he improperly accessed the state computer system to remove his name from public records. He got a slap on the wrist from Chief Tom Lewis, who, ironically, illegally accessed the same system himself 5 years earlier and got suspended.
As an attorney, I mean, the Florida bar would be smacking me around something fierce, because you can't just engage in constant misconduct. He's got 5 or 6 incidents of serious misconduct. He's still a cop.
We asked Punta Gorda police officials for an interview about this story, and we were told, quote, "The chief will not be providing an interview on the memos you referenced. Continuing the public discussion of Officer Cole's work product prior to the conclusion of both FDLE's investigation and our own internal investigation is unfair and possibly improper on our end." Now, after all of that, That's not the most egregious things these attorneys say Lee Cole has done. That involved a wrongful arrest. We'll have that tomorrow night in part 2 of this story. Dave Culberth, Wink News Now.
These drugs and stuff like the German jails, they would have, we got 7, I'm a Canadian originally, we got 7 times more.
Will you do me a favor?
What's that?
If you want to record me, I have no problem with that.
Right.
But this is not a public building.
Last time we were here, we already discussed it. They said we could.
But there are other people here that may not know that you're recording them.
Okay, last time I was here, I asked if I could record, they said yes.
I have no problem with it.
Right.
I believe the facility is probably in the same mindset as they were last time. But just out of common courtesy, let people know they're being recorded, please.
You're being recorded.
Well, wait, everybody's here.
You have to let them know, too. Are you running? He doesn't answer questions, I'm sorry.
Don't answer questions?
No.
You just did. You did.
If you have any questions for me, you can talk to my attorney, Kevin Shirley.
I gotta meet Kevin, man. He's popular, man. He is popular.
No, but he was the lawyer for the guy that sold when I bought my house 18 years ago.
You want me to sit here next to you, buddy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyhow, should be interesting. Good. You're from Punta Gorda?
Oh, did you meet him yet?
So am I.
Now, tell me you were Canadian.
This is John Sertan. This is Ian. This is the guy that's doing all the filming, going for public records requests and stuff.
Oh.
They like him. They like him so much they trespass him.
They do. I'm very popular.
What was the latest video on? Looking for a trespasser. Jim Mello.
Oh, Jim Mello was trespass from some real estate office for causing a disturbance in there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And
But the only record you got was 2015. That was the one?
yeah.
Oh.
But they were giving the other guy like a hard time about getting the record, so you know, like I had to go down there and straighten those things out with him.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, and by the way, we tried to get L.A. Daniels and the black people to come today. I'm totally serious. Totally serious. I said, let's meet here and have a conversation.
It's a shame.
It is. So.
The meeting's canceled. Maybe next month. It's going to be the same time, same place?
The meeting's canceled?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Well, we're the community.
Feedback from the Traeby Woods community.
We can't be part of it.
You're not members of the Traeby Woods community, no.
Oh my God, that's a good point.
You got your number,
You
man.
just told me a few minutes, man.
It's a meeting to discuss in the community, and now it's canceled.
Yeah.
Wow.
But seriously, I really appreciate you gentlemen.
No, but you told me a few minutes ago it's here to discuss a community discussion meeting, and now it's canceled.
Meeting's canceled, yes, sir.
Because I thought it was a community discussion meeting. That's what you told me a few minutes ago.
Yeah, we're members of the community. We like to be heard.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming.
When will Cole face justice? Will Officer Cole ever face justice, Mr. Lewis?
That's a great point. Ask again.
Will Officer Cole ever face justice, Chief Lewis?
What about Officer? What about Tom Lewis? So what do you want to do? Go for coffee? Let's not waste the time. I'm shocked too, man.
He just told me
that you're going to have a meeting, right?
And I says, what is it about? And he says, it's just a community to discuss things in the community.
Right, he wasn't specific on which community, though.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He just said community.
Exactly.
I says, what is it, about? And I says, well, that's great. That's what we should have.
It ain't worth it.
Okay.
Once they've got their mind made up.
All right, so what do you want to do? Let's not waste this. You want to do coffee somewhere or what?
Sure.
Harry, where's the closest place for coffee?
We could have just used this community center. We don't have to have anybody here.
I can't.
That's what I can't figure out. This is a public place.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you don't even need any kind of permission to film? I don't understand that.
He's supposedly saying I do have the right to film, but I'm supposed to let everybody know.
Don't believe that's true in Florida. Please zoom in on this God we trust part. I'd like to find out what God they're talking about.
That is true.
What kind of trust is that?
So Ian, let's not waste it. Let's do coffee somewhere. Wait. All right, so John, you want to do coffee somewhere then? Where's the closest? I'm shocked too. Totally shocked. I'm totally shocked, man. So what do you want? You want to follow us or?
Yeah, I'll follow you.
All right, we're down here. I'm in the white convertible.
Okay, I'll follow you.
So where do you want to go for coffee? Let's not waste it.
Whatever you decide, I'm just easy to get along with, man.
He just shut the meeting down. He said we're not from the community, so he canceled it. So let's not waste it. What you want to do? Let's do coffee somewhere.
I'd give it about 2 or 3 minutes. These two just showed up for the meeting.
I know. Well, now 2 black people just showed up from the community, so are they going to have a meeting? I know, that's why he said, maybe wait a minute. Oh, Have you ever seen anything like this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Are you here for the meeting?
What?
Are you here for the meeting? Hey, I think we got a meeting, man. We got another one. Yep. Your door. Okay, he still canceled it? Hey, all right, can I give you my card then? Hey, the reason why I showed up and the reason why he's freaking out, I unfortunately experienced the corruption here myself. So 3 years ago, I started Charlotte County COPWATCH. I was the guy that was in the newspaper and all 3 channels where they illegally looked me up on the David system. Not to bring me flowers, but to do bad things because I'm exposing the corruption here. So that's why I think I'm shocked. He shut it down. So we need cops. You know we need cops. I know we need cops. We're trying to show people that we're here. You can hold them accountable. You can do different things. You know what I mean? Is it all right if I give you my business card? All right. So in 3 years, by the grace of God, I'm a Christian. The YouTube channel went nuts. 40 million views. 38,000 subscribers. In fact, I'll even give you my regular card. So I'm sorry that he did this. We seriously are here. We need police, but we were just here to let you guys know that we're here. If you ever have, if you ever need any help, investigating anything, or if you need a story put out, because internal investigations won't do anything. We were the ones that helped break the dog mall story. We're also the ones that did, in Collier County, 7 sheriffs beat the crap out of a white guy. He was in the hospital for 3 days. We broke that story. So we really are trying. Okay. We're trying to help. And sorry that it shut. We are shocked that he just killed it like this.
Okay.
So what was your name?
Reverend Brown. Reverend Howard.
Please get a hold of me, man. You guys got a card? I'm shocked. I really, really am. This guy right here, John Surcan, he helps the homeless over in Charlotte County. So he's going to let you guys know that he's here too. So he helps people there. In fact, you know what's crazy? He's the one that the guy that supposedly got away from the sheriff at the water and hung himself. That's his landlord. He knows the guy. This wouldn't have happened. Like the guy said, he knew the guy. He didn't hang himself. You know what I mean? 65. So, anyways, I'm sorry that it bombed out. All right. Oh, are we filming? Yeah, he was supposed to be. That's what I told him.
So why don't you want to deal with us? L.A. Daniels.
Do you not value our opinion?
All right.
Is Officer Cole ever going to face justice, Mr. Lewis?
Why, who are you with? Just a regular person? That's fine. I don't answer questions.
I'm a regular person. Hey, Andrew, I wanted you to meet David. This is Dick's friend.
Okay.
Andrew, who are you? A regular
Andy.
person?
No, I actually am. I'm
not a regular
person. Careful. Careful. Hey, let's not waste this. Let's do coffee. What's the closest thing to here for coffee? Here's my card. Because Surcan's here and everything. You didn't even get to meet him. He helps the homeless in Fort Charlotte.
Oh, okay. How you doing? Hi. How you doing? Yeah.
Okay, where's the closest place for coffee?
See you later, man. It was a short meeting. Sorry, I didn't get more time.
I'm not sure. Let's go over here and we'll all talk.
All right, John, we're gonna discuss over here what we're gonna do. But be careful for those bike racks. You almost got it.